Hey there everyone, welcome back to another one of my collection videos, and today in sort of recognition of the 25th anniversary of the TurboGrafx, I am doing my PC Engine collection. I actually had a PC Engine, a TurboGrafx when I was a kid. I got it when it came out, it came out in September, but I got mine at the end of October, which is my birthday. So I had it, pretty soon after it launched. So, I have a lot of good memories with the old TurboGrafx and the PC Engine. Also, one of my favorite consoles ever. So I got a bunch of games here, and they're in no particular order. I just pulled them off the shelf and plopped them down in front of me. So I guess we'll just get into this, and because there's a lot, I don't know how. I, I feel bad talking about my PC Engine collection because in the U.S. I have a much bigger collection with a bunch of stuff. I was originally gonna try and do a complete PC Engine collection, but I had about, I don't know, 450 PC Engine games. Not that I It's not that I don't have them. I guess I have them still. They're still mine, but they're in the US in my parents' attic. So not doing me any good there. So this is my kind of reformulated PC Engine collection since coming to Japan. But yeah, let's hop into this because there's a lot of stuff. So first game we've got here is Emerald Dragon. Emerald Dragon is a pretty awesome RPG. It's got pretty cool cutscenes. It's got a lot of like interesting story elements. It's kind of like a romance between a human and a dragon. It's a little weird, but yeah, it's this game I've actually talked about quite a bit in my PC Engine RPG recommendations. And the PC Engine version is the best version. There is a version, I believe, on the Super Nintendo, but it kind of pales in comparison to the PC Engine version, which seems to happen a lot. But yeah, so Emerald Dragon. And next we've got another RPG I'm pretty sure I talked about in my RPG recommendations video, and that is Last Armageddon. Last Armageddon kind of rules. It's kind of awesome because um, it's a game where the Earth has been destroyed. It's like post-apocalyptic, but I there's no humans left. So the humans have all been killed, and the world is being kind of fought over by monsters and demons and aliens. I don't know, aliens. But you have your party of monsters, and you're trying to. You're kind of going through the game and finding these tablets to figure out this kind of mystery. Oh, awesome. I'm like behind me. If you can see the video, there's this light. It's because like I'm right near the window, and as I'm moving the game in my hand, it's projecting onto the wall. Okay, totally unrelated. But yeah, Last Armageddon, pretty good game. There's a sequel too on the. I don't know. It's not. It's kind of like a side game in on the Sega CD as well. But yeah, Last Armageddon, pretty good stuff. Uh, I'm not. I'm not sure. There's a PC version of Last Armageddon. Maybe it's an MSX version, but I think it's split between two games. Whereas this one on the PC Engine is the kind of full thing in one disc. So that's probably better. I'm not sure if it looks better. I think there's a version where that looks better than the PC Engine version, though I can't remember. And not important. Anyway, Last Armageddon, you should check that out if you. I don't know if I don't think there's any English patches for that or anything. So, um, next we've got Princess Maker One. Princess Maker is a simulation game. It doesn't seem like something I would play, but actually I really like this kind of simulation game where you have essentially it's like a raising sim. You have this princess, and you have to kind of raise her to be a very good princess for, um, princessy things. It sounds stupid, but it's actually quite a bit of fun if you like simulation games. So I have this Princess Maker 1. There's a whole bunch of these games, actually. The company that made this micro cabin has done a bunch of games that I really like. They're not a company anymore, but Princess Maker and what is it? Illusion City on the Sega CD. Good stuff by Micro Cabin, who is kind of underrated. Like, they put out a bunch of stuff that was good, but it's like really not recognized. But whatever, Princess Maker. Let's see. We've got the Kung Fu. This game, it's not incredibly good. It's not horrible, but it's not like a very good game. The reason I got it again was because I had it when I was a kid. So this is a kind of rebuy of a game that have had when I was a kid. But you know, it's like Kung Fu or something on the NES, except with huge sprites and lots of pattern memorization. But yeah, let's continue. We've got Bikuriman World. I don't remember which game this is, but I'm pretty sure it's a Wonder Boy game reskinned with Bikuriman characters. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, it's Wonder Boy and Monsterland something, I think, reskinned with Bikuriman characters. It's a pretty good game. Next we got Victory Run. Victory Run is another game I had when I was a kid. It's an alright kind of racing game. I don't mind these kind of old style racing games. Like, after a certain point, I don't like racing games, but if you get like these kind of TurboGrafx ones or like Road Blasters or something like that, I'm pretty good with it. But anything that's like realistic racing, I'm pretty much gone. In kart racers especially, I don't like, which is, I think everybody knows. What is this? It's Shanghai. This is a what is it? I'm blanking on what it is. It's a game. It's like a tile game. It's like a tile puzzle kind of battle game. I'm just blanking on what it's called in English. I just don't remember. Whatever, not important. Mahjong. That's what it is. That's what this is. It's good stuff though. I used to play this a bunch. I don't know why I played this a bunch, but I really like it. And, I mean, it's simple. I only bought it again because it's another game that I had when I was young, but also because it's fun, even though there's like a million versions of this kind of thing. Let's see. This is next, Jaseiken Necromancer. This is the first RPG that was on the PC Engine, and I really like this game. It's not it's not the best RPG, but it's kind of awesome because it's got a lot of Cthulhu. Cthulhu is in the game, but it's also got like a bunch of like the final bosses are all Lovecraft monsters, and it's a really kind of dark kind of horror RPG, which is something you don't see all that often. So, it's a little grind heavy, and there's a lot of random encounters, but it's still a good game. If you don't mind that kind of thing, it's pretty old school in that sense, but it's a horror RPG. It's you're not going to find a lot of those. Speaking of horror RPGs, we've got next Shirio Sensen, also known as War of the Dead. This is a different kind of horror RPG. Necromancer, Jaseiken Necromancer is a kind of turn-based RPG, and this one is more along the lines of like a Zelda 2, but with more RPG elements. The battles are done in like, kind of side-scrolling action games. You have guns and knives and stuff in this one, though. So it is a kind of post-apocalyptic horror RPG, which is, awesome. You can't, you sold me at RPG, but if you add horror to that, I'm pretty much bound to buy it, I guess. But this one is especially good. if you like that kind of action, side-scrolling action RPG, like this is a good kind of a must-have game. Continuing on, this is Yokai Dochuki, which is I forget what the English name. It's something like Shadow something, Shadow Land maybe. I don't know. But it's a side-scrolling kind of platformer where you're traveling through Japanese hell. That sounds awesome, right? It is. It's a pretty fun game, actually. If you've ever played actually Namco Cross Capcom, a bunch of characters from this game are in it, and they're kind of pivotal characters to the story, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, this is a it's not an easy game, but it's a fun game. Let's see. This is Gaia no Shomon. This is a kind of fantasy strategy game. Think of it as like a military strategy game, something like Advance Wars, but with a fantasy setting. I have a lot of these. This kind of game is one of my favorite types of genres that I never talk about on my channel. I have a ton of these types of strategy games. Military strategy and kind of fantasy battle strategy. I get so many of those, and I rarely talk about them because it's not something most people care about. But this is one of those, Gaia no Shoma. Continuing on, we've got Newtopia. And Newtopia for me is kind of like was the Zelda killer, in the sense that, you know, when I had the TurboGrafx, it came out in, you know, what was it, 1989. This game was out pretty early with it, and it was so, you know, it's so much better looking than like the way how Zelda 2 turned out. Like, if you liked Zelda, and I liked Zelda a lot when I was a kid, the original one, and when Zelda 2 was out, you know, it was so different. And but Newtopia is essentially a Zelda clone, but it looks a lot better than the original Zelda, and it has some of its own kind of things to it that make it a little better. And I think I just prefer Newtopia to Zelda, even though it's a clone. So yeah, Newtopia. Continuing on. This is okay. This is Momotaro Densetsu Turbo. I had to check if it was Densetsu or Dentetsu, but I don't think I have any of the Dentetsu games. But this is Momotaro Densetsu Turbo, which is it's not an action RPG. It's a turn-based RPG. It's also on the Famicom, but the Turbo version is, like, obviously it looks better and has a little bit more content, and I don't know, it's just Momotaro Densetsu, which I've talked about before on my channel, I think in my Famicom recommendations video, actually, because it's a pretty good series. It's goofy, it's got a lot of weird humor going on in it, but, you know, it's a kind of traditional traditional Japan setting for an RPG. It's pretty interesting. Next we've got Space Harrier. This isn't the best version of Space Harrier by far, but it's not a horrible version of Space Harrier either. Anyway, Space Harrier is a game that I really enjoy, but I rarely find myself playing the TurboGrafx version. I mean, if you're gonna play it, you might as well play one of the arcade ports. And, like, another thing is that Space Harrier is coming to Yakuza 0. It'll be in the arcade. You can play it in the game. So this will get even less play when I can play it on my modern system easily, I guess. So let's see. Continuing on, we've got Fighting Street, also known as Street Fighter 1. And I had this also when I was a kid, for the Turbo CD. And yeah, it's not like a super good game, but I really enjoy Street Fighter 1. I remember playing Street Fighter 1 in the arcade before Street Fighter 2 came out. So it was the kind of thing where like I was used to it. It was at my like local convenience store. There was like a little arcade section in there, and Fighting Street or Street Fighter 1 was there in the arcade before we even knew what Street Fighter 2 was. So I remember playing it with friends, and I remember playing it also at the beach in an arcade then when I was a kid. So it's the kind of thing where it's when it came out for the Turbo, even though Turbo Street Fighter 2 was already out, I had to have Street Fighter 1 because it was a game I actually kind of enjoy, and I still play it every once in a while, even though it's like really clunky to work with comparatively. But and you know, you can kind of cheat in the TurboGrafx version though, because you can get the special moves to come out really easily, and they do like massive damage. But whatever. Next we've got what is this? Tenkai Makyo Ziria, and that's Far East of Eden. Uh, Everybody knows Far East of Eden because Happy Console Gamers talked about it a ton. But it's a really good kind of colorful, kind of funny and interesting RPG series. And this one actually has a remake on the Xbox 360, I believe. If you feel like downloading it, you can play it. I'm not sure if it's in English, but it's there. So, but I got the PC Engine version, and I'm fine with that. Continuing on, we've got Bomberman 94. You really kind of have to have Bomberman on the TurboGrafx. It's the kind of thing where, like, if you've got a Turbo Tap and controllers, it's kind of the go-to game to play with multiple people. And it's Bomberman. Everybody knows Bomberman. Bomberman, there's a couple of other Bombermans too. Bomberman 93 maybe, and I don't know. I know there's another one. I just can't remember it. But I've got Bomberman 94 because it's the one I like the best, I guess. Continuing on, we've got Golden Axe. Golden Axe for the for the PC Engine is pretty bad. It okay, it's bad in some ways, but good in other ways. It's got cutscenes with story elements that aren't in the normal arcade or the Genesis version. In the Genesis version, it's kind of the go-to version for consoles, but the PC Engine version, the actual gameplay is awful. It's terrible. But if you play with each character, you can kind of get these like background stories for everybody, and you get like cool animations. So it's kind of worth it to play through it with everybody once just to see the stories. But after that, you'll never want to play it again because the actual gameplay is terrible. I think it's like it's not even a port of the arcade. I think it's a port of the Amiga version. It's like not done very well at all. But continuing on, we've got Kato-chan, Token-chan. This is JJ and Jeff, the Japanese version. And the Japanese version of JJ and Jeff is quite different, actually, from the American version. I had the American version when I was a kid, and I really like JJ and Jeff. It's a fun game. It's kind of wacky. It's got lots of poo, I guess, for some reason. The Japanese version has even more poo, and it has all these weird urinating and farting jokes too that aren't in the US version. It's like the US version is the edited version of this, and this is like the uncensored version. But it's still essentially the same game. The battles all work the same, and all the secrets are the same. So, it's still a pretty good game. And I'd say this is probably the best version because it's unedited. Continuing on. Oh man, I should put all this stuff together and talk about it later because it's kind of a theme and a series. So we'll put those aside. But anyway, Street Fighter 2. This is Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition or Street Fighter 2 Dash, I guess. Um, but Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, if you want to play Champion Edition, PC Engine version, that's the way you should go. Um, it's probably the best Champion Edition. Champion Edition. I don't know why that sounded weird when I said it. Champion Edition version on consoles. Of course, like, if you're going to play any of the other ones after Champion Edition, they're not on the PC Engine, and they're probably better on Super Nintendo or Genesis or whatever. But, man, this was a game that first got me to buy the PC Engine converter when I was a kid. Um, because really wanted Street Fighter 2 for the PC Engine. Because, I had the TurboGrafx, but it didn't come out for the TurboGrafx. So I had to I imported it, and I had to, have the converter to play it. And we always played this one. We always played this one over the other versions of the game until Super Street Fighter 2 came out. Let's see. This is Juoki, also known as Altered Beasts. Altered Beast on the PC Engine is a pretty good port. I have no complaints about Altered Beast on the PC Engine. And plus, it's got some animated voiced cutscenes, so that's pretty interesting. The the voices in this game are all sampled, I believe, so it's much clearer than the kind of ones you'd get on Genesis or something. But I think it has smaller sprites than the Genesis version, but I think overall it's a little bit more colorful, and it plays pretty much the same. So I don't really have any problems with the PC Engine version of Altered Beast. Let's see. We've got Dungeon Master: Theron's Quest. This is like a kind of Japanese port of Dungeon Master where I'm pretty sure they just redid the sprites and added this extra story to it with like Japanese looking characters. It's essentially a Dungeon Master game though, and Dungeon Master is more of an action-based first-person dungeon crawler, and it's more in the vein of something like the Eye of the Beholder or something like that. So the Dungeon Master series is actually pretty good, and they're also Dungeon Master 2 on the Sega CD is also pretty good, but this one also a pretty good game. Let's see. Continuing on, we've got Populous. Populous was a game I spent so much time playing as a kid. I didn't have it on the PC Engine. I had it on the Super Nintendo and on the Amiga. But the Populous it's made by Bullfrog Entertainment, I believe, and it's such a good game. I really like this game. It's kind of a god simulator, but you're god essentially, and you're trying to build up your forces, your kind of believers, to fight against believers in another god who is working against you. And essentially, it's just like a terrain terraforming simulator, because that's all you do. Just change the terrain so your kind of cult can grow. But it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure how many are in this version of Populous, but in the Super Nintendo version, I think there's 100 stages. It might be 99. But I played through the entire game, and I love this game. Populous is such a great series altogether. Populous 2 also is pretty good, but I don't think that's on the PC Engine. But anyway, next we've got Tanjo Debut, and this is a kind of simulator game. This one is a like an idol simulator, so in the kind of same vein as Princess Maker, which I mentioned earlier. You're kind of raising an idol to become famous. There's a lot of these games. This Tanjo game series. There's an adult one. It's like AV Tanjo, which is like a kind of simulator for raising it's like one of these raising sims for an adult video actress. Well, I should buy that actually because it sounds insane, and I actually like simulator type of games. So whatever, throw in some porno actresses should be fine. Um, Next we've got this is Garo Densetsu 2 or Fatal Fury 2. This is one of the arcade card games. There aren't a lot of arcade card games, and I have a big chunk of them, I think. But, this is a pretty good port of Fatal Fury 2 because of the arcade card. It's not, obviously it's not arcade perfect, but it's pretty great considering everything. This is kind of my go-to version of for Fatal Fury 2, only because I don't have any other versions. But yeah, actually that's not true. I think I might have this in a collection or something on the Saturn. I don't know. Whatever. Continuing on, we've got Blood Gear. I've talked about Blood Gear a bit in my TurboGrafx PC Engine RPG recommendations. This is kind of a mech-based action RPG. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on for it. You have a kind of interesting story. You've got cool animations and cutscenes. You've got your kind of side-scrolling action RPG. It's a lot of good stuff. And I've talked about this a lot more in depth, and there's gameplay and stuff in the recommendations video, so I won't go on about it. But Blood Gear is kind of it's like a game that if you were really thinking of getting some RPGs for the PC Engine, and you're like, well, I don't really speak Japanese, you could kind of get through this without Japanese, and it's fun enough that like even though you don't really understand the story, you can still have fun with it because the action parts are pretty good. Let's see. Next we got Deathbringer. Deathbringer is it's a first-person dungeon crawler. It's not the best first-person dungeon crawler. It's kind of a mediocre one actually, but it's all right. It's a pretty interesting game altogether. I like it. I like that it's Deathbringer because he looks like what's his face from Death Adder from Golden Axe, and I believe in Golden Axe there is another character called Deathbringer who looks exactly like this. So I just think I'm pretty sure it's like a straight up ripoff made by Renovation. If you guys know Renovation, they did a ton of the Promotion video games on the Sega CD. If you're a Sega CD fan, you know Renovation. But this is a Renovation first-person dungeon crawler. Continuing on, we've got Cosmic Fantasy. Cosmic Fantasy, this is the first game in the series. But, yeah, Cosmic Fantasy is a really kind of underrated RPG series. It's underrated because, like, none of them were translated except for 2. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. It reminds me of kind of a wackier Phantasy Star. There's usually some kind of fantasy element, like a standard Dungeons and Dragons style fantasy element, plus like space rangers and stuff. It's pretty interesting. Um, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the series. I don't have the whole series yet. I bought the first one because I wanted to play it to see if there was a connection between the second one. The second one here is Cosmic Fantasy 2. I had when I was a kid actually on the PC Engine, and I still remember this little bastard. His name is Pico, the most annoying character ever in the English dub of this game. Um, if anybody's played this game, you know what I'm talking about right away because his voice is like nails on a chalkboard. It's awful. But the story in this game is really good. I think there's even in the US version, I think they didn't edit it out. There's like a weird bondage dungeon fantasy with like nudity and stuff in this game. I remember that as a kid thinking like, this is the most awesome game I've ever played. And it's not like a super great game. It's a great game, but it's not like the best game. But I remember thinking like when this game came out, there were virtually no games with animation and like more adult style content, and this has it. So it's kind of like the thing where everybody I knew wanted to play this game when I had it, because it was just the kind of thing where like, there are people are like, yeah, I got a Genesis, and I'd be like, well, come play the TurboGrafx at my house. We'll play some cool games, and like you show them like Ys or um, Cosmic Fantasy 2, and it has like all these like nice animated cutscenes, and people are all like, oh, I should have got TurboGrafx. And that was kind of the thing, man. Nobody had a TurboGrafx except me, so everybody who wanted to play it had to come to my house, and we played this. This was always a game I made people play because it was nice to look at it. I mean, it's nothing special now comparatively, but at the time, when you're playing something like this, you just know that you win the console war when you take out Cosmic Fantasy and Ys. Next, we've got Monster Maker. Monster Maker is part of a series, and I have this. Okay, I'll say this game is all right, but it's like not finished. I think it's all buggy, and it has like bugs in it that will make the game like unbeatable. And overall, like it's not a bad game. It just feels like it's not finished completely, and it's kind of a there are more in the games in the series. So like I probably wouldn't recommend this one. It's got a lot of cool animation and stuff in it, but beyond that, like you'll want to stab someone in the eye if you get to the point where you can get stuck because of a kind of bug, and that like is kind of a deal breaker. So I probably wouldn't recommend this game, even though it's pretty fun. Continuing on, we've got Clax. Clax, I'm gonna hold on. Clax is a game I had when I was a kid, and it's you see it's a Tengen game. This was an arcade game, and it's a kind of a puzzle game, and it's really simple. I mean, it's not easy, but it's a simple kind of concept where you're just matching tiles. But this game has the kind of thing where, man, I'm always thinking about Clax because it's got all this cheering and like sexy women voices when you do things good. So like, if anybody's played it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But the Clax woman voice is ingrained into my memory because I played this game so much as with my sisters. Actually, it was like kind of one of the few games that my sisters also like to play with me. Clax. So I actually do play this quite a bit still. It's a pretty fun puzzle game. So I mean, this isn't the only version either. You can get it pretty much everywhere in that era. So pick up Clax if you haven't played it. Pretty good game. Continuing on, we've got Langrisser. This is the first Langrisser game, also on the Genesis. But I think, what is it? War Song, it's called in English. So everybody knows what it is now. This is a kind of strategy game, also made by Masaya. Masaya, this company is like makes a ton of games that are good, and some that are notorious. We'll get to later, but Masaya makes a ton of great games, and Langrisser is one of those games. The series is really great overall, but this is a kind of fantasy strategy game that it's not even incredibly difficult. Once you like, the beginning is probably the most difficult part, because once you start getting better units, you can just rain on everybody. It's really not that hard, but it's a fun series. If you I have every game in the series, even the terrible one, but yeah, this is a kind of series that I would recommend you check out if you have the opportunity, because it's pretty great. Next we've got, this is Mashin Eiyuden Wataru. also known as Keith Courage and Alpha Zones. Of course, I had this when I was a kid. It was the pack-in game for the TurboGrafx, and I really like this game. It's not long, it's short. You know, it's short, but it's got catchy music and it looks really nice. And this is based on an anime that or manga that I've never seen, and it's pretty famous. There's an RPG also of the same characters and stuff that I have for the PlayStation 1. And man, the Keith Courage and Alpha Zones RPG is actually pretty good. This is a platformer though. It's one that I put a ton of time into as a kid and beat this. It's not an easy game to beat. I think it's only 5 stages, but maybe 6. I don't remember. But it's not all that easy to beat, even though it seems like it would be. It's got a bunch of wacky enemies too, which is also cool. Gunhead dudes and stuff. I don't know. Pretty good game though. Even though I think that's another one that's kind of looked down upon as not very good, but it's good. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Let's see. Next we have Getzendiener. This is it's a really short game and it's sparse, so like you'll be running through and it's like not much happens, but it's kind of like a really early version of something like a Diablo kind of game. But essentially, like, you have this princess. Okay, here is like another thing. This game is about a kidnapped princess, but there's a twist to it. She gets kidnapped by this kind of evil dude, and this kind of hero comes to save her. And the hero and the evil dude kill each other, essentially, so they're dead. So both of them die. So she is just like, well, screw this. I'm not gonna wait for this dude to save me. I'm just gonna do this myself. So she takes off through the dungeon and escapes by herself. Essentially, that's it. It's a good story. And it's not that good of a game though. I mean, it's really short. You can get through it quickly, and you probably wouldn't need any type of Japanese knowledge to play through it. But you know, it's also cheap. So if it sounds interesting, even though it's not gonna be like a super great experience, you can beat it in 2 hours. It's like super short, but you know, it's a pretty good game in that sense, in that like it's at least got an interesting kind of concept to it, even though it kind of feels empty a lot of the time. Next we've got Nectarius, also known as Military Madness, another game I had when I was a kid and put so much time into. Love this game. I played through it again recently, actually, not this version, but actually this version, but not and also on the PC Engine, but not this one. And I'll explain later. Nectaris, it's again a military strategy game where you're essentially fighting on the moon against moon rebels. That's pretty much it. But it's pretty unforgiving. So if you're not very good with strategy games, you won't really get so far in Nectaris. You have to really pay attention to where you're placing units, what kind of terrain, and then sometimes you just have to hope you get lucky. Yeah, but great series. If you never played Military Madness, you should really get on that. Continuing on with that, though, we've got Neo Nectaris, and Neo Nectaris is a sequel to Nectaris, so this is essentially Military Madness 2. But there's something awesome about this in that it's a CD game, so it has better animation. It looks better too. All the units are more colorful and more well designed, I guess. There are a few extra units, but it also has the entirety of the original game on the disc. So you can play, if you have Neo Nectaris, you can play not only the new game, but you can play the original scenario in its entirety with the original graphics and everything. So if you're thinking like, I want to import Nectaris, just get this one because it has both games. You win. If you get the original Nectaris, you know, you're missing out on the entire all the new terrain, all the new kind of areas, the new kind of battles the new units, you miss out on all that stuff. So Neo Nectaris is the way to go, really. So let's see, continuing on, Galaga 88. Galaga 88 is a really good game, actually. It's Galaga, but it plays, well, I mean, it plays like Galaga, but it also has kind of scrolling shooter parts, it's interesting. It's a little bit different from Galaga. This was also released on TurboGrafx as Galaga 89 or 90 or something, I don't remember. But yeah, I would recommend this. If you like Galaga, you'll like this. Same goes for this. This is Space Invaders, Fukatsu no Hi, which is like the return or something. But the day of the return. But Space Invaders, this is essentially Space Invaders. You can play original Space Invaders, but it's got a new kind of Space Invaders on here as well. If you like Space Invaders, you'll like this. Same with Galaga 88. They're both interesting if you like the originals. Let's see. Next we've got Neketsu Koko Dodgeball Boo Soccer Hand. It's the stupidest name ever, really, because it's saying like Neketsu High School Dodgeball Soccer. Like, why add the dodgeball part? I don't know. Whatever. This is a Kunio-kun soccer game, and it plays like all those other Kunio-kun sports games. It's kind of got your wacky Kunio characters, and they attack each other and also play sports. Good stuff, though. You can't really go wrong with these kind of sports games. If you want to play like old-style sports games, this is the Kunio series is like the best ones, really, because they're wacky and fun, yet still maintain a kind of semblance of a sport. Now, let me move some more stuff out of the way. Next, we've got Pumping World. This is Buster Brothers, essentially. You're popping balloons. They split in half into smaller balloons that you also have to pop until there's no balloons left. That's it. It's not easy, but you got a bunch of stages. It's fun. If you like if you like Buster Brothers, you'll like this. We've got Burai 2. This is a game I also talked about in my PC Engine RPG recommendations. So this is a pretty good RPG, actually. I quite enjoy this series. It's like it's not really a series. There's only 2, but it's pretty interesting because this one has like a bunch of different characters that are kind of separate, and you'll kind of be able to run through the game like short little RPG introductory sections for each character, and then they kind of meet. So it's like getting like a bunch of little small RPGs together, and then you get the main story with everybody. I really like this game. I talked about it a bunch in that recommendations video, so check that out if you want to see more gameplay and stuff. Next we've got Shin Megami Tensei. Shin Megami Tensei on the PC Engine. It's not the best version. Actually, there's a lot of parts to it that look really good. And the downside to it, though, is that it has no kanji, so it's a pain in the ass to read. For me, at least, it's like all hiragana, which is like how all Famicom RPGs are too. But it makes things like less snappy to read than the Super Nintendo version. But there are some cooler things. There are some animations and stuff in this that are not in the Super Nintendo version, but beyond that, it's not like the best version to play. Really, the PlayStation version is the best version to play. But, you know, I just got this because collecting. Let's see. Next, we've got PC Genjin, Bonk's Adventure. This is good stuff. Bonk's Adventure, a game, again, I had as a kid. Can't go wrong with a little bit of Bonk every once in a while. Yeah, this is probably my favorite platformer from when I was a kid. I can always go back to Bonk's Adventure and play it again and again. It's not even that long. You can probably get through it without continuing too. It's not an incredibly difficult game. But whatever. Good stuff. Bonk's Adventure. Everybody knows Bonk's Adventure. I don't really have to talk about it. Next we've got Super Schwarzschild. This is kind of again, another military strategy game. This one is in space, though. It's a good one, though. This is a pretty good strategy game. Good enough to buy the sequel, Super Schwarzschild 2. I really enjoy these Schwarzschild games. I like saying that, actually. But so I don't know. It's got some kind of interesting kind of, you know, military space story going on. It's got some cool animations. It's a good strategy game. That's really all you can ask for. It's pretty solid. If you like strategy games, this is the kind of way to go. Continuing on, we've got another RPG here. This is Laplace's Demon, or Laplace Nomad. This game on the PC Engine version is the version to go with. This is also on the Super Famicom, but the Super Famicom version is nowhere near as good as this version. Let me explain why. Laplace's Demon on the PC Engine is a first-person dungeon crawler, and the one on the Super Nintendo is a third-person dungeon crawler. And first person wins. I've said it. There you go. First person wins. And it actually looks a little better. There's full voice act. It's not full voice acting, but there is voice acting, which isn't present on the Super Nintendo version. The only upside for the Super Nintendo version, there's apparently a fan translation for people who are interested in it. But this is a kind of Lovecraftian horror first-person dungeon crawler. It's quite good, actually. I would really recommend playing it, even the Super Nintendo version, if if it's your only option. But yeah, this is a really good game. Next, we've got Palladium. Palladium. What is it? Auto Crusher Palladium is the name in English on there. But it's kind of a mech battle game. You kind of build and battle mechs. That's about it. I actually know the guy who developed this. It's the only reason I bought it is because I know the guy who developed it. Continuing on, we've got Neketsukoha Dodgeball. Neketsukoko Dodgeball. That's something else. This is essentially Super Dodgeball. It's on the not the Super Nintendo, on the regular Nintendo. But this is the PC Engine version. It's more close to the arcade version, where you have like bigger characters, one big character, and smaller characters. I played through this recently. I streamed this recently, like the entirety of the game, where you go to the moon and fight aliens. Yeah, Dodgeball. You can't. This is an awesome game, by the way. I didn't have this one as a kid. Obviously, it didn't come out for the TurboGrafx, but I had it on the Nintendo, and I played it so much. And this version has a scenario where you can recruit characters and fight aliens, so it just makes it better. Next, we got Master of Monsters, and this one is a fantasy monster battling simulation strategy game. Like all the other strategy games I've been showing you, here's another one. This is a really good one, though. This is also on the Genesis and on the Sega Saturn. But quite a good game. Continuing on, we've got... This is Asuka 120% Maxima. This is a all-school girl fighting game. It's kind of wacky. I've talked about this game on my channel before. Not this one specifically, but the Saturn one. And this is a kind of precursor to that. It's kind of a spastic combo game. It's only a 2-button fighter, but it's, battling schoolgirls, whatever. You can't go wrong with that. Next, we've got Ys 1 and 2. Ys is it's Ys. Everybody knows Ys. Action RPG. This has been ported everywhere, but this is the version for me because it's the version I had when I was a kid, and it was my first introduction to the Ys series. And I probably beat this game 10 times. I don't know. It's the kind of thing where it's a game like, when you're a kid, you just play your games over and over because you don't have any other ones. And this is one that I played over and over. It's a good game. I'm sure all of you know Ys is a good series, though. Continuing on, we've got Wizardry 5. Wizardry 5. I have a lot of really good memories with Wizardry 5. I I didn't play the PC Engine version. I played it on the Super Nintendo originally. But I played it on the Super Nintendo so much. It was like the only game I played for an entire summer, and I just played it over and over and over, with different types of parties and different types of, you know, ways of playing. Such a good game. And Wizardry 5 especially, is probably the Wizardry game I put the most amount of time into, just by virtue of replaying it over and over. Even though I think Wizardry 8 is the best Wizardry game, Wizardry 5 is a game that I can play over and over. Let's see. This next one is The Legend of Xanadu, or what is it? Kaze no Densetsu Xanadu. This is a pretty cool, like, side-scrolling action RPG. I might have talked about this in my, what's it called, PC Engine video, because this is a really good game. It's one I would definitely recommend. There's a sequel to... I might have it. I might not. I don't think I do. Whatever. There's a sequel also that I don't have. At least not in this pile. But that's another Falcom game. If you like Falcom, you should play that. Anyway, next we've got Snatcher. Snatcher, I think... Snatcher on the PC Engine, I'd say, is probably the best Snatcher because it's unedited. That's the only reason, though. It's not like it's really different, but it doesn't have any edits, unlike the what's it called, the Sega CD version. Again, downside is that it's not in English, but you know, there's animated titties, I guess. That's that makes it totally better. Snatcher Snatcher is a really great game. If you haven't played it, you don't have to play the PC Engine version. Just play any version, but Snatcher. Let's see. We've got... what is this? Exile. Exile, kind of an action, side-scrolling action role-playing game. It's really good, though. It's kind of got its own style to itself. Another renovation game, if you're interested in that kind of thing. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing games, but maybe they're just at the bottom of this pile. Okay, maybe that's what it is. Okay, next we've got Princess Maker 2. Princess Maker, again, this is a racing sim, but it's weird because this is one of the few games that supports the arcade card as well. It's pretty good, though. Again, this is probably the best Princess Maker game, actually. Princess Maker 2. Yeah, I won't talk any more about Princess Maker, though. Continuing on, here's one I wanted to talk about. We got Double Dungeons. Double Dungeons, notorious, I think. Everybody thinks, automatically, when you say Double Dungeons, they think of Johnny Millennium and his shelf being held up by Double Dungeons. But let me speak out a minute in defense of Double Dungeons. Double Dungeons is not a bad game at all. It's actually a pretty fun game, and I think I understand why Johnny doesn't like Double Dungeons, because he doesn't like first-person dungeon crawlers. At least when he was young, he didn't. I know this because I saw him talking about, what's it called, Might and Magic on the Genesis, and being, like, totally confounded by it as a kid. But this is, you know, a first-person dungeon crawler, and it's not it does some things that are pretty interesting. Also made by Messiah, by the way. Double Dungeons does some things where, like, there's no random battles. The monsters are in the dungeon, and you have to you can just walk around and fight and run away at any time you like. And essentially you'll start the beginning just running from everything until you find slimes to fight. And then after you fight enough slimes and level up, you can start fighting stronger stuff, and then eventually you'll be able to get through the stage. But, you know, there's a bunch of stages in the game where, like, there's 6 scenarios or something where you're going through and you're you defeat the dungeon, and at the end you'll get a letter for a code. And after you beat all the dungeons and have all the code letters, you can input the code to unlock an extra bonus dungeon for the final battle. It's actually I had this game as a kid too, actually, but it's It's pretty fun, actually. It's a game that you can easily go back to because the scenarios don't take that long. You can beat each scenario in like less than an hour, I'd say. And once you do that, you can go to the final boss. So it's pretty fun, actually. I would probably recommend the Double Dungeons if you like a kind of easier kind of one person in the party first person dungeon crawler. It's like a simplified first person dungeon crawler essentially with no party system. It's fun. I don't know. I can't really say much more about it than that. I would recommend it. Next, we're gonna look at something I was gonna make a video about these games, but I don't know if I will. But it's my PC Engine wrestling game collection. I have almost every PC Engine wrestling game. I think I'm only missing like one or two that I just haven't been able to find. There's like a women's pro wrestling and a monster pro wrestling that I haven't been able to find. But we've got Fire Pro Wrestling Second Bout, and Oh wait, the first one was Fire Pro Wrestling 3. Sorry, this is Fire Pro Wrestling Legend Bout, and this one is Fire Pro Wrestling 1. But Fire Pro Wrestling is good. The PC Engine Fire Pro Wrestling's not that great, but the series itself is good. Next we've got Champion Wrestler, also not that great. I bought a bunch of PC Engine Wrestling games, like hoping I'd get something good, but a lot of them ended up not being all that exciting or just being kind of mediocre. The coolest thing about these games, though, is the characters that show up in them, because there are a lot of real wrestlers that show up, and it's from like the late '80s, so you'll get a bunch of like characters you're not expecting. Unless you're playing this one. This is what is it? Shin Nihon Pro Wrestling Battlefield. The original Battlefield, right here, guys. Not that shooter stuff. It's totally this pro wrestling game. But you can see the Great Muta on the cover. This one actually has real pro wrestlers in it, and it's one of the arcade card games. It's fails in so many ways though, because the sound effects are terrible. I don't know what they're doing with the sound effects, but like when you play it, it's just like this screeching going on. It's like no matter what you do, there's like the sound effect is some variation of a screech. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's such a failed opportunity to do something awesome, because use the arcade card. It's got like all these like real wrestlers that you've heard of. Yeah, man. The last of my wrestling games, Maniac Pro Wrestling. Maniac Pro Wrestling ended up being the best one because it's not like a action wrestling game. It's more like your kind of Captain Tsubasa, that kind of menu-based wrestling game. Like Captain Tsubasa is like a soccer game where you're kind of playing against a team using selections from menu, and that's kind of how this works too. It's a wrestling game where you have this kind of story going on, but you also have the wrestling matches that happen in a menu-based way. And I didn't think I was gonna, even though I kind of enjoy Captain Tsubasa, I wasn't sure I was gonna like this, but it's actually kind of good. I kind of found myself enjoying it more than I thought I was going to, and I put a bunch of time into it. I feel like I should go back and finish it now, because I only, like, when I first got it, I put it in and I thought like, I'll play this for like half hour and see how it is, and then in like 3 hours later, I'm still playing it. So it was kind of interesting in that sense. Let's see. Continuing on, we've got Super Dai Senryaku. Super Dai Senryaku is another military strategy game. This one is a hex-based one. A lot of them have been hex-based. I just haven't been mentioning it. But this plays a lot like Nectaris or something like that. You guys might know this series. It was Iron Storm on the Sega Saturn as well later on. But this series has so many games, and it's on every system ever. But this one, it's pretty good. It reminds me, it's Master of Monsters made by the same people, so the battle system is the same, just the units are different in this. It's essentially all you're doing with that. It's just another strategy game. we're almost at the end here. We've got only a couple more games. We've got Dungeon Explorer and Dungeon Explorer 2. Dungeon Explorer and Dungeon Explorer 2 are kind of Gauntlet clones, but you know they got some extra stuff in there to make it different. I mean, but it's a cool game to play multiplayer, and it's also pretty interesting. It's got an ending at least, unlike Gauntlet. But these games, man, so good. I would really recommend Dungeon Explorer. Dungeon Explorer 1, I know, I had when I was a kid, but I'm not sure about Dungeon Explorer 2 if that ever got a port to the TurboGrafx. If not, it's totally playable without knowing Japanese. So I would recommend that, definitely. And the last games here, we've got R-Type, R-Type 1 and R-Type 2, which is essentially just R-Type. R-Type 1 is the first 4 stages of R-Type, and R-Type 2 is the last 4 stages. It's just split between 2 hue cards because it couldn't fit the whole game. There is a complete version, R-Type Complete, on the PC Engine. That's the CD game that has both of them in there. But whatever, I have the 2 hue card versions because I had the hue card version. That's how it is. I'm used to it. These are my only shooters for the PC Engine, actually. I have a bunch more in the US, but I'm not rebuying them. They're too expensive now, and there are a few more that I'm going to buy again, but it's only cheaper ones. Like, I'm going to get Gradius and Salamander. That's about it. I'm not like a huge shooter guy. So if you've tuned into my PC Engine collection hoping to find more shooters, you've been horribly deluded, because this is the end. That was all my PC Engine games that I have currently. I have a huge list of PC Engine games that I still need to get, though. So this is gonna probably double almost to get everything. There's a ton of stuff still. The PC Engine has so many good games, and there are so much stuff that I still have to rebuy. So good stuff. And this video is over an hour. I figured it would be. There's a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of stuff to say about it. But yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna go. That's over an hour for this PC Engine collection. I don't know who's gonna watch over an hour of this, but PC Engine people will be happy to watch this. Other than that, you're not even hearing this. So yeah, I will catch you guys next time.